Hi everyone, and welcome to our Facebook Live event. We are live from the MedStar Georgetown Transplant Institute, where we are going to talk about living donation and using social media to look for a living kidney donor, as well as present education about the transplant process, about kidney disease, and about living donation in general. So I am Alex Radomski. I'm one of the transplant social workers here at the Institute, and I'm joined by two of our patients, Ms. Malkia White and Mr. John Payton, and also one of our transplant nephrologists, Dr. B.G. Thomas. So before we get into sort of the details about using social media tools to look for a living donor, Dr. Thomas is going to tell us why it's so important to talk about living donation and to look for a living donor.
Thanks, Alex. So kidney disease affects quite a few people in the country. Almost 37 million Americans are affected by it, so that roughly that's 1 in every 7 people. So if you look to your right and left when you're on the bus or the subway, somebody there has chronic kidney disease. And many people don't even know that they have chronic kidney disease at all. And almost 40 to 50% of people, when they actually have severe kidney disease, don't realize it until they're actually coming to the hospital where they finally have symptoms of disease. Now, as the disease progresses, there are different modes of what we would call renal replacement therapy, such as what we would think is dialysis, and of course, transplant. Transplant's obviously the ideal mode of renal replacement therapy to give you back your life and, to live a longer, hopefully more fulfilling life. So, but to get on the transplant list, the key thing to remember is once your kidney function is 20% or less, you can actually get on the wait list to get a kidney transplant. Why is that so important? Because usually people end up on dialysis closer to 8 to 10% of kidney function. So if you're at 20% and you can gain all that time, by the time your function goes from 20 to 10%, maybe it'll take 3, 4, 5 years, however long, you get to gain that time. And that allows you to hopefully get a transplant sooner, which is very important. Now, once you're on the list, you might ask, how many other people are there on the transplant list? What determines my wait time? Well, for wait time, it's primarily your blood type. So, and it can be anywhere from 3 to 5 to even 7 years. That's how long you would have to wait. And that's why it's, again, important to get on the list once your kidney function hits 20%. So the number of people actually on the list, as of last week when I checked, for a kidney transplant is about 102,000 people. And how many transplants did we do in the United States last year? Roughly 23,000 transplants. So you can see there's a huge gap there between how many people need a transplant and how many people are getting a transplant. And roughly, 13 people die a day waiting for a kidney transplant. So one of the things that is available, other than when you're waiting on the list, is how can you get a living donor? That's why today is so important. And some things I just want to talk about very briefly, and then I'll hand it over back to Alex, is number one, the living donor, when someone comes forward, they get thoroughly tested, and they have an examination with physician, social worker, finance. They actually have a patient advocate for them as well. So it's a very ethically and very medically rigorous process. When a person comes forward, they also sometimes we're asked, well, what about if I'm not a blood type match, or what if I have antibodies? The recipient has antibodies to me. There's something called the donor exchange program, which allows us to put 2 people that might not be compatible to be transplanted into that exchange program. This is run by the National Kidney Registry, so you can imagine just a big computer database of people. And so we try to find another couple that is similar to them, but they basically would trade the organs in the sense that they can move forward that way. And so there are many, we do about 100 or so. We're number 1 or number 2 in the country. We've done a lot of these transplants. There are different forms of that donor exchange program. Obviously, if you can't, you can also directly donate to your potential recipient. So, and there's going to be a PowerPoint that you can have access to that you can go look through and ask further questions. But the take-home point in all of this is, a couple of them is, remember, when your kidney function is 20% or less, to try to get on the transplant list. And don't ask, instead of asking if I have a donor, try to ask yourself, who is my kidney donor, and get the information out there. Alex, I'll turn it back to you so you can go forward.
Thank you. So for those of you who are tuning in tonight, we want to encourage you to ask questions as we're talking about what we're talking about. So type those into the comments there on Facebook, and we'll be able to see those and address them as we go. I was curious, though, Dr. Thomas, in follow-up to that, you mentioned the wait time for a deceased donor kidney. If someone has a living kidney donor who is identified, how long is that wait until transplant?
So if someone was approved tomorrow, the living donor is approved, and the recipient is potentially approved. Here at Georgetown, we move pretty quickly. So I would say if the recipient is on dialysis, we get the transplant done very quickly, within weeks. Within 4 to 6 weeks, even if not less.
Wow.
If it's very urgent, where they need the transplant even sooner for whatever reason, we do push for that as well.
So it's really a way to speed up the process potentially if there's a donor identified.
So if your blood type is O, which is the longest wait time, roughly 6-7 years, you go from 6-7 years to roughly a month until we get a chance to get the surgery done. Yeah.
One of the questions I get a lot from patients that I speak to is about who can be a donor. So a lot of people are surprised that it doesn't have to be a relative, and I think that's part of what we'll talk about here today, because we want to encourage patients, and I know our patients here tonight have been able to look beyond just their families, but that's true, correct?
Right. So the 2 cents there is, so anybody that's healthy enough can be a donor. Of course, they have to be over the age of 18. There's no upper age cutoff. And the other, and so we do examine and do all those things. You don't have to be a blood relative. You can be a total stranger, and it can work out. So yeah.
Yeah. So that really underscores the importance of sharing your story widely and getting it to as many people as you can. Malkia, I would love to hear from you kind of about what your experience has been in doing just that, and tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Malkia White, and I was diagnosed with kidney disease when I was a child. So I've been living with kidney disease for at least 3+ decades. So I've always managed my kidney disease, and I have IgA nephropathy. Sometimes it's referred to as Berger's disease. So I did not find out that I was in kidney failure until 2017 in the winter months, and I just so happened to get an illness, and whatever tests were run, the testing that came back indicated that I needed to be on dialysis, and my kidney function was at 12% at that time. And I guess the only symptoms that I felt were fatigue. I knew I was sleeping more, and I've always enjoyed sleep, but this was a different kind of sleep, and I couldn't describe. The only way I could describe it to anybody else who didn't understand, it's just a different kind of sleep. You're just always tired. So found out my kidney was functioning at 12%. I actually tried at that time. I informed all my relatives and my friends about my disease, just so they would be informed. I did not want them to find out my condition on social media, because I have close relationships, and just out of respect of our relationships, they needed to know from me. So I have this village of 100+ people that I said, this is what's happening in my life. I would like to get a preemptive kidney transplant, but trying to avoid dialysis altogether. And I'm searching for a living kidney donor, and these are the qualifications you need to meet. So I informed them about everything that I knew. And I didn't get a preemptive kidney transplant, so I ended up getting on dialysis when my kidney function was at 8%. And I have nocturnal dialysis treatments 3 times a week for 6 hours, and I say to my family and friends when I give them updates, I look good, I feel good, at least I think I look good, I feel good, but I need a kidney. And I've done a lot of research on my disease in particular, chronic kidney disease in general. And in order to spread my message, I created a campaign called That Girl Needs a Kidney. And the background,
that's a cool name.
The background behind the That Girl is sometimes I refer to myself as that girl. And I need a kidney. So it just made sense that was my tagline. So I started off just emailing friends and family, and then I started posting stuff on my Instagram account, my personal Facebook account, and Twitter. And then just this past year, family friends suggested I create a Facebook page. So I created a Facebook page called That Girl Needs a Kidney. And I not only share my story, but I share statistics. I share facts about the disease, ways that people can prevent kidney disease. And it's a platform for me to share with others that are in the same situation, that you can be encouraged. You just have to make the choice to live. And that's what motivated me. I have so much more to live for. There's a legacy that I'd like to live up to. So I tell everybody, please share my emails, my posts, and if you're not tech savvy, find someone who is tech savvy so they can teach you how to just click the share button to share information. Because the likes are appreciated, but likes don't get the message out to folks. It's very important that you share the information.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm interested because you talked first about how you sort of talked to your inner circle, so to speak, and then how did you make the decision to decide to broaden that and to go out on social media like that?
Being a part of the support group here at the Transplant Institute, talking to every person in the group, asking for suggestions on how to find a living donor. Many people just said, get a Facebook page, get bumper stickers, get T-shirts. So I already had a blog, so I was okay with having information online, and it's very personal information actually. So having a Facebook page, I took the precaution of, at first it was open to people who could actually post comments.
Okay.
And then I got a comment that wasn't so on the up and up. So I said, well, I'll prohibit comments from the public, and I'll just share. And people still have an opportunity to comment on, the pictures and the videos that I do post. But you have to be very careful. There are trolls out there, and even though this is a serious matter, a serious medical matter, there's still folks that don't totally respect that.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't really know exactly what you're going to get. Yeah. Actually, that's an interesting question too, I think, for people who are sort of nervous about sharing or who consider themselves to be very private. What sort of gave you comfort in sharing your story like that, or how were you able to do that?
Again, the motivation is to live. I need a kid. I know that I need a kidney transplant to live beyond the age of 44. So I have no problem sharing with the world. Hi, my name is Malkia. I need a kidney. These are the things you need to do if you would like to donate a kidney to me. And I didn't provide my own personal cell phone number. I would never suggest that unless you're comfortable with that and you want those kind of calls. But I do have a different home number, and it's specifically for That Girl Needs a Kidney. So, you like my Instagram, Facebook posts, come on, be my friend, follow me.
Yeah.
Just share the message, please.
That's good. Really cool. I think, John, this might be a good time for you to introduce yourself, and then as we go, we can sort of go back and forth between the two of you guys. But there's definitely some things she's saying that I wanted to run by you as well. So.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Payton, and I am a recent kidney transplant. Received my kidney this past February, going on 3 months and 2 weeks. So very excited and happy and feeling great. I'm here sort of tonight to talk to you about the social media aspect of communicating to people that you do need a transplant. I'd like to start first by saying, if you need a transplant, unless you talk about it and ask people and share your story with people, no one will know that you need a transplant. So social media provides you with a huge platform in which you are able to do that by not only being able to reach out to your friends and family, but also to the general population as well. There's a story that I like to share that sort of links to social media that sort of fully explains why you need to talk about it. Guy goes to Disney. He wears a t-shirt that says, "I need a kidney." He's from New York. While he's in Florida at Disney, a guy sees him. He goes back to New York. He gets a call from the guy, total stranger, saying, "I'll be your kidney donor." And that story sticks with me because it's an amazing story. And these stories replicate themselves on Facebook almost every day. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter almost every day. Getting started, as we were just talking about, there are ways. What I would caution most people to do is that if you are going to utilize social media, to make sure that you have a boundary between your private life and your search for a kidney. So along the lines of that, instead of using your personal pages, create an individual page that's specifically for the purpose of looking for a kidney donor and sharing information that is relevant. But when you're sharing it, think about, is it information that you want to see and how you would respond to it? And when sharing that information, create a story that people can relate to and identify with. And what was alluded to just a little while ago, it also never hurts to ask other people to help you develop that story. I know for me personally, I hate writing about myself. And so in developing a story for myself, I reached out to my best friend, and she helped me craft the words that I needed to use, the images that I was going to select to put on social media. So it never hurts to ask. And I actually have to admit that she's a great friend, and she is of the millennial generation. So pretty good source for reaching out via social media. I want to go back to the one area that you were talking about when you said you did your initial outreach, and how you didn't want to tell, you only wanted your core group of friends to know, and you wanted them to know from you first. And that kind of struck me because I was sort of the opposite when I first got started. I didn't want to talk about it. And then the more I got involved and the more I saw and talked to other patients, I began to use the social media platforms. And I started out with my friends first. Starting out with your friends, just emphasizing this, it is key. Social media works when other people like and follow you and share your story. I can sit in the room and tell everyone here that I have kidney disease. But if they don't go out and tell their friends, and their friends tell their friends, and so on, only the group here in the room knows that I have kidney disease. So if you are working with someone who is seeking a kidney, always remember to share that story with your friends, your networks, your colleagues, to help them get their story out. I think it's one of the key components of social media, and that what works the best is the fact that you do have this huge open network of people that you can connect with, and the stories just go on and on and on, but they don't move unless you actually share that information and like that information and follow them, and even commenting helps. It gets that connection going. Did you have any particular questions you wanted me to answer?
I think, both of you guys might be able to touch on this, and I would ask that you sort of use your imagination here, because you all are very comfortable with social media. But if there are people who I encounter, people who say this often, who are not comfortable using social media, they might be interested and want to try this, but where does one start?
I can give one source in particular. Well, the social media platforms themselves have this awesome little feature called Help that pretty much will lay out for you exactly how you go about doing it, how you open a page, create a page, how you post images and so forth. But there's also another source that I use a lot too. It's called Social Media Today. They're on all the channels, and they provide excellent information on how to where to go, resources for people who are just getting into social media. And I just wanted to touch, if you are getting into social media, don't be afraid. I sort of equate social media to like driving a car. When you first got behind the wheel, you were nervous, you were scared, you had to have your parent there with you. Then before you know it, you were driving down the country roads by yourself at speeds you probably shouldn't have. Listening to your mother's voice in the back of your head. But social media is the same way. Start slow. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Look at the help section to get information. And then talk to your friends and your family to sort of help you get started as well.
Yeah. So you can kind of start slow and grow from there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any particular people that you follow on Facebook or Twitter that is like kind of like a meeting place for everybody that is in this kind of situation?
I am in a unique situation because I do a lot of advocacy work. So there are a number of people that I follow who are influencers in the industry as a result, but I also follow a lot of my former friends who are either in the process of getting a kidney transplant or getting on the list or doing dialysis.
How about like the National Kidney Foundation and things like that, those kind of societies?
I follow the National Kidney Foundation, American Kidney Fund, and other organizations working for living donation.
Right.
Just through my research, and sometimes I'm like, oh, this is something new. I'm always finding something new online about kidney disease. Like just last couple weeks, it never occurred to me to go to the CDC.
Right.
Yeah.
Now I've gone everywhere else, but didn't go to the CDC. But they had 2019 statistics. And back to initially getting started, I have some good friends that are tech savvy.
Yes.
And I'm tech savvy, but they have
Another level.
more expertise. They're a little younger or a lot younger, and they keep up with all this technology. So I use my resources.
Yeah.
I say, hey, can you do this, or what do you think I should tweet? How do you think I should formulate the sentence, the tweet, the post? So I go to the experts I know. That's very helpful.
I like that.
Yeah, and don't think that you have to be a marketing genius or someone who knows what marketing is. Take a look, I would say step back and take a look at what you follow online, what you like, what you don't like, and sort of keep that in mind as you are beginning to formulate the way you want to present yourself to the world when you're asking for a kidney transplant. There are images that you may want to use, some that you may want to stay away from, and just think about how other people are going to respond to the images you post. I know for one, I'm afraid of needles. A lot of people don't like needles, so probably don't include needles in your photos is one tip that I would give. Another tip that I would give is that there are a lot of people who get squeamish over blood. Blood is a huge part of the whole treatment process. So be careful about what level of detail that you're showing with regard to that as well. And also make sure that any pictures that you're posting I usually use the philosophy that if you don't want your mother to know, then you don't want to put it online. So just be careful about the type of photos you post and make sure that the content represents you and how you feel and will help you develop your story.
Now, I have actually posted videos of dialysis, the beginning part when I cannulated, and then when the needle is taken out. And the reason that I did that, I've gotten so many questions. Well, how is dialysis? What do you do? How long does it take? Are you comfortable? Can I come and sit with you? And so I like making these little videos.
Yes.
So I gave them just enough and have some nice music in the background. But I wanted people to understand this is what I go through.
Yes. And you hit on the key point. You gave them just enough to work with and to understand the process. You didn't give them this snap-up shot of your arm bleeding profusely. And I have seen some of those online, and so that yours is an example of how you connected with your audience. You gave them they identified what you're going through. They feel for what you're going through. They are sort of on your journey with you, and so that's how you sort of have to go about making your decisions. What you choose to post and don't post greatly influences how you want to tell your story and how you want people to connect with you.
Okay. So once you decide, what you want to share, you sort of come up with your story. What would you guys say are the best social media sites or channels to share your story on?
I think it varies. Each of the social media channels has their audience and the way they're utilized. To take Instagram, for instance. Instagram is heavily photo related. So you're going to be posting a lot of content that's either photo or video related. Twitter has a stringent character limit. So you are giving short snippets and you have to be concise in what you're saying and how you're saying it. Facebook allows you the ability to reach a bigger audience, but it starts with the base of your friends. Your friends are your base of your Facebook page. So you're always reaching them first and then expanding your network out. Now, all three of them do have one thing in common: how you can get your message out, because you can utilize the marketing tools that each one of them have. And what I mean by that is that in Facebook they call it boosting, and Instagram they refer to it as promoting. So they had different terms for it, but it all is the same. You want to increase how many people are actually seeing your post. And so you actually, if you want to go this route, you pay a small fee, $15, $20. You actually set your own budget. So it can be 10, it can be 15, it can be 20, it can be whatever. And from that, it will determine how many people that you reach. And you can actually narrow your audience and say that you want to reach between 18 and 65, or you're looking in, the kidney community or the dialysis community. So you can sort of you can also, sort of target cities as well. I just did a campaign which I sort of targeted most of the mid-eastern states, and you were able to actually go in and do that. And each of those platforms tells you what you need to do and how to do that. If you just go to help and type ads, it'll bring up the rules or regulations, how to do it, and the safeties that you should use the best practices you should use for safety.
Okay. So at the very basic level, you go to facebook.com, instagram.com, twitter.com.
Yes.
You create an account by putting your name, and generally you have to have an email address, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. And then these sites are pretty user-friendly from there. You mentioned the help section is something that's there all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And when you're creating your profile name, that girl needs a kidney, you want to create a name that resonates with people, that kind of captures their attention and draws them in. So when I hear that girl needs a kidney, to be perfectly honest, my first identification is with the Mary Tyler Moore Show, which may be past some of our audience's age, but certain names resonate with us, and with that resignation, we kind of hone in on them quicker. And so you want to look for names that actually, those, I wouldn't say catchy, but that sort of cause you to think of something and cause other people to think of something.
Yeah. We have an interesting question from Regina. She says, is anyone using SEO, social media influencers, or any internet marketing strategies to direct traffic to their Facebook, Instagram, etc.? And if so, are there any concerns about possible ethical issues around doing that in order to drive traffic to the page?
I have not used any of those sources.
I do. And I don't believe there are any ethical issues with it, as long as you're not. and I believe the policy is, and you may have to correct me on this, as long as you're not soliciting or trying to exchange money,
Absolutely.
then
Illegal. Do not do
it
that.
is perfectly fine. I mean, the way a lot of people utilize their social media channels, and this is something that you can consider, is they use social media channels to drive traffic to a website that they've created. And on that website allows you to provide more information about the process, who you need to call, what you need to do, and allows you to sort of funnel that information, funnel the traffic into one. So I have used websites for that purpose, where the social media gives people that snapshot, that glimpse of me and what I need, and then they click on a link or the photo that I posted, and it goes to the website. That's pretty much a classic strategy that even businesses use today.
Yeah, so you can't exchange money for an organ. You can't exchange favors or goods. Part of our workup is to make sure that the donor is not being coerced in any way or pressured in any way to do the donation. So yes, so you could potentially, just like wearing a T-shirt saying "I need a kidney," you're just advertising. But when you come to the actual site or your actual page, there can be no exchange of those kinds of things to get the transplant.
Right. I think that's one of the things that we touch on with patients too is not only are you advertising your need, but you're sharing your story, you're providing education. And so once people start to learn more about it and become interested, they perhaps can get to the next step, organically that way. So a couple other questions that we're getting in, which is great. Are there any privacy concerns with using social media to do this?
Privacy concern?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, like I said, I think anyone on social media should be very careful about what they post. Because this medical issue is so much more personal, just be careful with the words that you choose and the information that you share, your contact information. Make sure it's a number that you're not going to access all the time, and if someone calls at 3 a.m. versus a decent hour of 5 a.m. That you're okay with that. And like I said, I prohibited public comments on my page. Not that I don't want to interact with the public. I'm working full time. This search is a full-time job. Searching for a living kidney donor for me is like a full-time job. So I don't have all the time in the world to respond to everyone on my page on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook.
And I would say with privacy, because I know privacy is one of the most frightening things when you're doing social media, because you are putting yourself out there. You are sort of exposing yourself to a number of people, which is why when I initially stated that you really should have a separation between your main personal page. I'm going to use Facebook as an example. Your main Facebook page is how everyone finds you. That's your main account. Off of your main page, you can create another page that's specifically for the purpose of reaching out and asking people for a kidney donation. But with that, you also have to make sure that you go through your settings. Your settings are vital on any of these social media channels, because they will help you determine what notifications you get, when you get them, how you get them, who can comment, who can't comment on your pages, what information you can communicate. You can restrict, the type of language to make sure that people aren't using, negative language and so forth on your page. So the settings are vital. And if you I actually recommend opening your settings key, your settings page, and actually go down each one of the items all the way through. It will take you about an hour, but they're designed to protect you. They're designed to keep your private information private, and so it's actually key with the settings. And then don't share anything you wouldn't share with your best friend or the person that you go to church with, or like I said, if you're not going to share it with your mother, why are you going to share it with everyone else. So those would be the things with regards to privacy. The tools are there to protect your privacy, but you have to make that next step to actually click on the settings and set your privacy settings.
I'm glad you mentioned that. It will take an hour, and it will. It's not when you set up your Facebook page. You can get it done quickly.
Yeah.
However, you should take the time to complete all of the steps so you reap the benefits of what you're trying to achieve.
What if someone else is setting up your Facebook account, or any advice for that? If someone who's not so tech savvy has someone set it up for them, would any advice for that person?
I'd say the same.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'd say the same
Just
thing.
keep an eye on it.
Yeah, you want that person to be the same. You also want to make sure and determine who you want to have access to the page. If you have someone else setting it up, do you want them to have continued access to that page after it's set up?
Gotcha. Yeah.
And that's all, again, in your settings. You'll see a little thing that's tab that says administration, or I should say permissions, and it will basically tell you who has permission to access your site, who doesn't. I actually co-host a couple of sites in which I'm not the creator of the site, but I'm allowed to give content and contribute to the site as an editor.
Gotcha.
So to go back to the phone number that you all were talking about, and this might have been something that you did. I know you mentioned you have a separate phone number. Should people try using a Google or Google Voice number, and how do you do that?
I did not use Google Voice. I have used Google Voice, and I forget about it. But I actually have, through my cable provider, whatever, the packages these days, they pretty much make you get a landline.
Yeah.
And I wasn't using a landline, so I was like, I have my cell phone, which I use all the time for personal business. And I was like, well, I'm paying for this landline. Let me use that.
Smart.
For That Girl Needs a Kidney, and that worked out perfectly. But I don't have much experience with Google Voice, and like
Gotcha.
I said, when I did have it, it was absent-minded.
And Google Voice is one answer. You can set up a Google Voice number, and then again in your settings determine when it rings to your phone. You don't even have to have it ring to your phone, but it's an individual number that you can give out. And share with people, and then you can go back and check the messages and so forth. But there are also apps that will allow you to have a dual number on your phone, and sort of create a number that is not your phone number, but is a completely separate number that you can receive calls and messages to. So on your Android phones and your iPhone phones, you should be able to find apps that are allow you to create a number, and that sort of does add to the privacy and the protection phase, because I know that I don't think I'd feel too comfortable getting tons and tons of calls on my private number, so I just created a separate Google number.
Cool. I think both of you are very good at answering this question. Can you all talk about the support groups that are available to people both in person and online, or using social media?
You go.
On social media, there are a number of support groups, support groups that I do participate in, and I can share those with everyone, and then they can provide the links and so forth to them. But when you join a group, you also have to understand that you're joining a group of people that you've never seen before. So you probably will never meet, but you all have one thing in common. You're either looking for a kidney, you're on dialysis, or you've had a transplant, or you're a caregiver or a family member who's providing care services to someone in those categories. So there are a number of groups. When I make my determination of a group, I go to the group site, look and see what they are offering and how they're set up or how they're promoting themselves, and then I look at the membership, how many members they have, and if I can try to find out, Google some information about the group on, if there have been any issues or problems out there. That's one way I look at the internet groups. One of the groups that tends to be my favorite and one that I cherish is MedStar Washington Hospital Center Support Group. I go every month. I don't care what I'm doing. I make it a habit of going unless it's an appointment that I can't get out of. I hate cold weather, and I'll still come out in cold weather to go to this group. And the reason it's important is that it's nice to have people who know what you're going through without you having to sometimes say what you're going through, because they're in the same situation. They know what it's like to be stuck at dialysis. They know what it's like being in a center. They know what it's like pre-transplant, getting on the list, or post-transplant. So I do make use of the support groups.
Yeah.
And they've made me a lot better as a result of it.
Yeah, I find the support group here every month have been extremely helpful, not only to me but my family. I have learned so much about pre-transplant, and now that I'm at a place where I'm on dialysis, some of the discussions I'm learning, well, what happens post-transplant, and how much work is involved in that, and it's like a never-ending cycle. But it is extremely helpful to be around people who will honestly share their stories, and it's a place of confidentiality where you can laugh, you can cry, or you can just sit silently and just listen. But you can gather a lot of information from those who have already gone through this process. And every meeting, I know I've learned something new.
Yes.
And I try to apply it to, my campaign.
That's awesome. I'm glad that you both mentioned the support group. So for viewers who might not be familiar, the MedStar Georgetown Transplant Institute has a support group of patients who meet each month. And we have 2 locations that we meet at. One is at the MedStar Washington Hospital Center, and one is here at the MedStar Georgetown University Hospital. So each location has a meeting every month. So patients are welcome and encouraged to come to any of those groups. And they are really wonderful. I've been to several myself. It sounds like going to them maybe gives you a little bit of a boost of confidence, or helps you to share your story sometimes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I think I can safely say this. No one wants to be on dialysis. But if you have to do dialysis, it's a life-saving measure that you will do, but it's awesome to be able to just release and talk to people about what you're going through. And it's probably one of the most unique groups that I've been a part of. They're almost like family, without the genetic part.
Yes. That's true.
That's cool. Okay. Well, I think if we could just summarize some of the things that we want to be sure people remember before we wrap up here, that might be a good idea. Some of the things that Malkia and John both talked about that we want to be sure people remember, some tips are that if you come up with a catchy name for your campaign, or a hashtag, that you want to make sure you use that in each of your posts, and make sure that the contact information is on there. So whether it's your contact information, one of the phone numbers that you come up with, I think it's also important to put the Georgetown Transplant Institute's contact information so that any potential donors can call the Institute. You can use videos and graphics in order to sort of boost your message and be sort of catchy things that people will see. And one of the suggestions is to consider prohibiting public comments so that you don't get any kind of weird messages on there. Be aware that it's not legal to exchange money or other goods for a kidney, but that might be something that you encounter, right? Mm-hmm. And then asking tech-savvy friends and family members to help you or be your champion to get started, and to also increase your message, right? Mm-hmm. To have people share your campaign more broadly. Is there anything else you guys can think of that's important for our folks watching to remember?
Don't be afraid. I mean, don't let social media make you. Don't be afraid of social media. It's there are no reasons to be afraid of it. As long as you practice your basic best practices and you read and research, you'll be good.
And I would also say continue to learn more about the disease, your particular disease, chronic kidney disease in general. And I've just made it a habit to inform others about kidney health. The statistics, if you pay attention to the statistics, they're very scary. And anyone going through kidney disease, I would say, don't focus so much on the stats. Believe that you will live and you will get your transplant and everything will be okay. Make sure you have a support system. That is so very important, to have family members and friends there to encourage you, to listen to you, to give you a hug, to write you a letter, send you a card, and make sure you personalize your message. You don't want to skate over your disease. It's deep. It's important for people to know what you're going through so they know how they can help you.
I wanted to ask so I know there's the hashtag Donate Life. Any other hashtags that you guys particularly like?
That girl needs a kidney.
That girl needs a kidney.
I mean, I tend to use the basic hashtags. I use Donate Life. I also usually add the organizations that I'm either following or who are believed to provide reputable information. MedStar Health is at MedStar Health is always in there, or MedStar Georgetown or MedStar Washington Hospital Center. But I also use like kidney transplant. Living donor is always a part of my hashtag regimen, and I usually tend to give a shout out to UNOS. So
I think for people who don't really know what a hashtag is, it's that, that pound sign
Hashtag.
before something else, and it's basically creating like a searchable term, right?
yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So if you put in the hash mark Donate Life, everybody that has tweeted that or done that will come up. So many stories, like when it's the National Kidney Month, comes through that way.
And there actually is one. I'm sorry that I almost forgot about this. There's hashtag Donate Life, but there's also hashtag Be a Donor. That is also one of the key ones out there. Hashtag Be a Donor.
All right. Any parting words, Dr. Thomas?
One thing, we were going to have hopefully a program in Baltimore in the fall called the Big Ask, the Big Give. The National Kidney Foundation, or the NKF. If you go into your Google search and just put in the Big Ask, the Big Give, NKF, you'll actually come to a site that their site, which goes over how to approach people for potential donation and the risks, the benefits, those kinds of things. Also, another really good website is the National Kidney Registry, or the NKR. They explain a lot of that paired donation and those kinds of things. So I think education is key. And of course, we're here at Georgetown. If you have any questions, or if you want to speak to a coordinator here, you're welcome to do that. The only one I wanted to mention, when they were mentioning preemptive transplant. A preemptive transplant is when you're not on dialysis yet, which is the goal, and the goal is you get transplanted prior to ever touching a dialysis machine. So that's very important to know as well. And I think that's it. That's all the things I wanted to add.
Awesome. Well, if anyone has any more questions they're thinking of, if you think of things later, you can continue to ask them in the comments. You can also call the Transplant Institute. You can talk to a coordinator or a social worker about creating a campaign, or if you wanted to learn more about our support groups that are available. But thank you all for joining us, and thank you as well.
Thanks for
Thank you. Thank you.